if you've been watching Monday Night Raw lately, you'll have seen that WWE recently made the decision to create this sort of Fight Club-esque program that takes place during the final hour of Raw. This, of course, is known as what they are calling Raw Underground, and it was created by everyone's crazy uncle, Shane McMahon. Well, to put it mildly, Raw Underground kind of sucks. And I think they could really use a change to it if they wanted to make it a success, because right now it's horrible. Now, honestly, I feel like it could have had the potential to change everything on Monday nights, but the way they're doing it right now is not working. That is why today I'm going to be answering the question in the title of this video: how can WWE make Raw Underground better? So let's start by discussing some of the things that are wrong with Raw Underground before we get into how they can make it better. First of all, the way they present it is kind of cringy to me. I know it was meant to resemble like the street fighting style thing where they're in like an abandoned warehouse or something along those lines, but it just doesn't seem to make any sense or fit in with the rest of the show. Like, for example, Raw Underground is supposed to be where people are actually fighting each other and throwing real punches and kicks, sort of like what UFC is, or kickboxing and things like that, while the rest of the show is filled with the in-ring professional wrestling and the gimmicks and things that we know aren't real but are meant for our entertainment. So, that being said, that makes the whole show seem like it's kind of contradictory toward itself, and kind of makes it hard to know what we should actually be investing our time into. Like, because it's basically two very different shows, almost like two different realities combined into one show, and it's kind of weird. That's why I think it isn't working the way they intended. And another thing that I don't really like is that it presents some of the superstars that fight on the show, it makes them seem like basically like they're weaker or different than what they are on that we see on Raw. So like sometimes we see the Viking Raiders fighting people on Underground and they look very dominant and like aggressive and they're throwing people around and everything else. And then we see them again on the normal show and they're basically a comedy act and aren't really doing anything noteworthy. Nothing that nothing about it really makes any sense, and in all honesty it makes the show even worse and kind of pointless to watch, if you ask me. Because like every time Raw Underground comes on TV now on Mondays and stuff, like in that last hour of Raw, I'm just like, I don't really care. And now lately it hasn't even been the last hour of Raw because they've been kind of cutting it short. It's like 20 minutes, or it'll be a segment and then they'll cut back to the main show and then they'll cut to it again. So they're not even keeping up with it themselves. It's not even staying to what it was originally going to be. So that kind of just, they've kind of just almost stopped caring about it themselves. But for whatever reason, they continue to do it. So now that we've talked about why Raw Underground is completely pointless, let's talk about what they should have done instead, or how they can fix it going forward to sort of make it stand out more. What I think they should have done from the get-go was have Raw Underground be the title of the entire last hour of the show, so the 10 o'clock to the 11 o'clock hours of Raw. And instead of introducing it as the stupid Fight Club thing that it is, they should have had it been created as sort of like an hour of hardcore type of thing where every match that takes place in the ring is no holds barred or something with no disqualifications. It would still be in the normal format, like in the normal wrestling ring and everything else that they've always done, and is still just like the rest of the show, you know, where the characters are still the same as they were 2 hours ago. They're not acting different or more aggressive or whatever, being in this like real world fighting scenario they got going on. Except that it now feels like they're part of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view, is like, or they took part of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view and sort of connected it to Monday Night Raw. Like, think about it for a second. Let's say that a match that takes place in the first 2 hours of the show ends in like controversy or whatever. or some sort of false finish type thing, and the superstar that lost decides that he wants to challenge the opponent that he lost to a rematch later on during the underground section of Raw. Now, when it's made official, they'll compete in like a no disqualification match or a street fight or something along those lines, and like that will sort of continue the feud. I feel like this would make not just Raw Underground a lot more fun to watch, but would also give a bit more life to the rest of the show as well, because we'd all be trying to figure out which matches might take place in that last hour and what might happen. And just imagine every main event of Raw, whether it's a title match or the continuation of a bitter rivalry that we've been seeing, something like that, being contested with no disqualifications. Now all of a sudden it's like, well, this is really interesting. Like, there's a whole hour with hardcore things going on and extreme rules type matches instead of normal matches. I think it would add a lot to the story and everything else. Stories of some of the rivalries that we've seen. It's sort of like putting on a pay-per-view in the last hour of Raw almost, where every match that happens, whether it's pointless or not, is some form of extreme rules. You would obviously, we skip over matches now. We wouldn't have to watch every one, but whatever matches take place in that last hour would be no disqualifications. There wouldn't be any of the nonsense with the random superstars deciding to show up to this other version of Raw to fight random other people in 5-second punch fests that don't even qualify as fights, really. And Shane McMahon wouldn't be bouncing around backstage like a father at his kid's soccer game, yelling out everything that's going on as if we can't already see what's happening. So there's that as well. That would definitely be a lot better than what they have going on now, don't you think? It would definitely make the show stand out more from some of the other wrestling companies that don't really do this. And it can add a lot more to the show as well, because when they advertise matches for next week, we won't know if they'll be in that last hour, or they could even introduce it like next week, Seth Rollins versus Rey Mysterio in a street fight, or whatever, in that last hour. So you'd want to stay tuned, at least watch that last hour of Raw. Then that's what Raw Underground would be. I feel like if they had done that, that would have made it a lot better than what it is right now. So there you go, guys. That's my theory on how WWE could make Raw Underground a lot more entertaining to watch and keep it interesting every single week. What do you guys think? Should they just scrap Raw Underground entirely, or change it just a little bit to try and fix it, or keep it as it is? Maybe you like that style of what they're doing now. Let me know down in the comments section below, and be sure to click that subscribe button for more videos just like this. Also, we would love to hear some of your suggestions on other topics you would love to hear us talk about, whether it's in professional wrestling or, like movies, TV shows, video games, whatever. Give us some suggestions on things you'd want to hear us talk about, and we'll try to talk about it on this show. So, thank you for watching, everybody, and take care.